Stop right there, because what I'm about to say might change the way you see mental illness forever. We're diving into the truths that society hides, the conversations no one dares to have, and the science that could literally save lives. Forget the sugarcoating, forget the myths. It's time to crush the stigma, reclaim your power, and fight back with knowledge. If you've ever been told to just get over it, this is your wake-up call. Today, we're breaking the silence, exposing the lies, and giving you the tools to conquer, not just survive mental illness. Ready? Let's do this. Expose the hidden myths, bust the biggest misconceptions society spreads about mental illness, like it's just in your head, or only weak people struggle. Let's start with one of the most damaging things about mental illness, the myths. You've probably heard them before. It's just in your head. You're overreacting. You just need to toughen up. These phrases sound small, but they carry massive weight, and they can crush someone who's already struggling. Here's the truth. Mental illness is not a character flaw. It's not weakness, and it's definitely not something you can just snap out of. Think about it this way. If someone breaks their leg, no one tells them to just walk it off. If a person is diagnosed with diabetes, no one says, just think positive and your blood sugar will fix itself. Yet when it comes to depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, or schizophrenia, that's exactly the kind of response people get. Why? Because of decades of misinformation and stigma that have convinced society that mental illness isn't real or isn't serious. But the science is crystal clear. Mental illness is as real as any other medical condition. It affects brain chemistry, hormones, and the nervous system in ways we can measure, track, and treat. Another myth, that people with mental illness are dangerous or unstable. This stereotype is not just wrong, it's harmful. The reality is, people living with mental illness are far more likely to be victims of violence than perpetrators. Spreading this false belief creates fear, isolation, and barriers to treatment. Imagine fighting a battle inside your own mind and then being labeled a threat to others. That's not only unfair, it's cruel. And let's talk about the myth that mental illness only affects a certain type of person. It doesn't. It doesn't care about your age, your race, your income, or your background. Mental illness doesn't discriminate. You can be the most successful person in the room and still be fighting depression. You can be a teenager who seems fine on the outside but is silently struggling with anxiety. You can be a parent, a leader, an athlete. Mental illness doesn't care who you are. Here's the bottom line. The lies we've been told about mental illness don't just spread ignorance, they spread suffering. Breaking these myths isn't just about awareness, it's about saving lives. Because once we stop treating mental illness like a weakness and start treating it like the medical condition it is, we give people permission to seek help, to heal, and to live fully. The science no one explains simplify the biology and neuroscience behind mental illness, so viewers understand it's real, medical, and treatable. Here's the thing most people don't realize. Mental illness isn't just feeling sad or being stressed. It's not simply a bad mood stretched out over a few days. There's actual science happening inside the brain and body, changes you can see under a microscope, measure in lab tests, and track through brain scans. Yet no one talks about this enough, and that lack of understanding feeds the stigma we just exposed. Take depression as an example. It's not just about emotions, it's about brain chemistry. In some cases, neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine aren't working the way they should. These chemicals help regulate mood, motivation, and even how much energy you feel day to day. When they're off balance, the world can feel heavier, darker, and harder to navigate. You can't just cheer up any more than someone with asthma can just decide to breathe better. Anxiety disorders tell a similar story. This isn't someone worrying too much for no reason. It's the body's fight or flight system misfiring. The amygdala, the part of your brain that processes fear, goes into overdrive. Your heart races, your palms sweat, your chest tightens, your body is convinced danger is right around the corner even when it isn't. That's biology, not weakness. And then there are conditions like bipolar disorder or schizophrenia, which involve complex shifts in brain structure and function. Imaging studies show differences in neural activity, patterns of blood flow, and even the size of certain brain regions. These are medical realities, not personal failings. What's wild is that the brain is connected to every system in your body, so mental illness can affect sleep, appetite, immune function, and even your risk for chronic diseases like heart disease. This isn't mind over matter, it's matter affecting the mind and the rest of the body. When we start looking at mental illness through this scientific lens, something powerful happens. Shame fades and empathy grows. Because once you understand that a panic attack is as real as a heart attack, or that depression can be as crippling as a broken bone, you can't dismiss it anymore. You have to treat it with the seriousness it deserves. The silent battles highlight what people with mental illness go through, daily symptoms that are invisible but life-altering. Here's something we rarely stop to think about. Most people who are living with mental illness are fighting battles we can't see. And that's what makes it so complicated. If someone shows up with a cast on their arm, you immediately know they're hurt. If someone has a fever, you understand they're sick. But when it comes to mental illness, the signs aren't always obvious. A person can look perfectly fine on the outside, while on the inside they're barely holding it together. Take depression. Someone might still be getting up for work every day, still posting happy selfies, still laughing at your jokes, but what you don't see is the crushing fatigue. The struggle to get out of bed in the morning, the feeling of being completely empty even in the middle of a crowd. It's like carrying a weight no one else can feel. Or think about anxiety. To an outsider, it can look like overthinking or being overly cautious. But on the inside, it's racing thoughts that don't stop, a body that refuses to calm down, and a brain convinced that disaster is always just around the corner. Imagine trying to focus on a simple task when your heart feels like it's about to explode out of your chest. That's the reality for millions of people every single day. And then there's the exhaustion, not just physical tiredness, but the mental exhaustion of pretending to be okay, of putting on a smile so no one asks too many questions, of forcing yourself to act normal because you're terrified people won't understand if they see what's really going on. That mask, that performance, it takes energy, and it's why so many people feel drained before the day even begins. The hardest part, these silent battles often go unnoticed, even by close friends and family. That invisibility adds to the loneliness, because you start to believe nobody could possibly understand what you're carrying. And the truth is, if we don't talk about these hidden struggles, people will continue to suffer in silence. And silence is where mental illness grows strong. The stigma that kills show how silence, shame, and judgment make recovery harder and stop people from seeking help. One of the biggest reasons mental illness continues to destroy lives isn't just the illness itself, it's the stigma attached to it. Stigma is like a second disease layered on top of the first. It's the judgment, the side comments, the rolling eyes, the whispers behind someone's back when they finally work up the courage to say, "I'm struggling." That stigma is powerful and it can be deadly. Imagine this. You're dealing with depression, already fighting to get out of bed, already battling thoughts that drag you down, and then someone close to you says, "Stop being dramatic," or "You just need to be stronger." That doesn't just sting. It reinforces the idea that reaching out for help makes you weak, so you keep it all bottled up. And when people hide what they're going through, the illness only grows darker and heavier. The truth is, stigma keeps people from walking into a therapist's office. It stops them from asking their doctor about treatment options. It convinces them that medication makes them broken, instead of recognizing it as the same kind of medical support we give for blood pressure or insulin levels. Stigma tells people that admitting they need help will cost them their relationships, their jobs, or their reputation, and tragically many times they believe it. But here's the reality: silence and shame don't just delay healing, they prevent it. We know from research that people who seek early treatment have better outcomes, faster recovery, and stronger support systems. Yet stigma creates barriers so high that many never get the chance to experience that. And in the worst cases, stigma pushes people into complete isolation, where hopelessness takes over. This is why changing the way we talk about mental health is more than just a nice idea. It's a matter of life and death. Every careless joke, every dismissive comment, every stereotype about crazy or weak doesn't just add to the problem, it sustains it. When we replace stigma with understanding, when we normalize reaching out for help, we don't just make life easier, we save lives. Let's talk about one of the most frustrating things people with mental illness. Here, just think positive. On the surface, it sounds harmless, even supportive. But here's the problem. Telling someone to simply flip a switch in their brain and suddenly feel better isn't just unrealistic, it's dangerous. It minimizes the reality of what they're going through and makes them believe that if they can't snap out of it, the fault lies with them. Think about it this way. If someone is in the middle of a panic attack, their chest tight, their breathing rapid, their brain screaming that something terrible is happening, what good does just calm down really do? It does solve the problem, and in fact, it often makes the person feel even more ashamed that they can't meet that impossible expectation. The same goes for depression. Imagine being so exhausted you can't even brush your teeth and someone tells you to just cheer up. That advice isn't just unhelpful, it's isolating. This toxic positivity creates a false narrative that mental illness is purely about attitude, when in reality it's about biology, environment, and lived experience. Positive thinking has its place. We all benefit from hope, gratitude, and optimism. But pretending positivity alone can't cure a mental illness is like telling someone with pneumonia to just breathe deeper. It misses the point entirely. Worse, these kinds of messages often discourage people from seeking real help. If the solution is just be positive, then why go to therapy? Why consider medication? Why talk openly about what's going on? People start to believe that their suffering is a personal failure instead of what it actually is, a health condition that deserves proper treatment. The truth is, healing requires more than empty slogans. It requires honesty, support, science-based treatment, and a culture that validates struggles instead of brushing them off. Yes, positivity can be powerful, but it's not a cure. It's one tool among many, and it works best when paired with therapy, lifestyle changes, strong support networks, and sometimes medical care. So the next time someone feels the urge to say, just be positive, I'd challenge them to replace it with something far more powerful. I believe you, I'm here for you, and you don't have to face this alone. Why just be positive is dangerous. Call out toxic positivity and explain why dismissing mental struggles actually worsens the problem. Let's talk about one of the most frustrating things people with mental illness hear. Just think positive. On the surface, it sounds harmless, even supportive. But here's the problem. Telling someone to simply flip a switch in their brain and suddenly feel better isn't just unrealistic, it's dangerous. It minimizes the reality of what they're going through and makes them believe that if they can't snap out of it, the fault lies with them. Think about it this way. If someone is in the middle of a panic attack, their chest tight, their breathing rapid, their brain screaming that something terrible is happening, what good does just calm down really do? It doesn't solve the problem, and in fact, it often makes the person feel even more ashamed that they can't meet that impossible expectation. The same goes for depression. Imagine being so exhausted you can't even brush your teeth and someone tells you to just cheer up. That advice isn't just unhelpful, it's isolating. This toxic positivity creates a false narrative that mental illness is purely about attitude, when in reality it's about biology, environment, and lived experience. Positive thinking has its place. We all benefit from hope, gratitude, and optimism, but pretending positivity alone can cure a mental illness is like telling someone with pneumonia to just breathe deeper. It misses the point entirely. Worse, these kinds of messages often discourage people from seeking real help. If the solution is just be positive, then why go to therapy? Why consider medication? Why talk openly about what's going on? People start to believe that their suffering is a personal failure instead of what it actually is, a health condition that deserves proper treatment. The truth is, healing requires more than empty slogans. It requires honesty, support, science-based treatment, and a culture that validates struggles instead of brushing them off. Yes, positivity can be powerful, but it's not a cure. It's one tool among many, and it works best when paired with therapy, lifestyle changes, strong support networks, and sometimes medical care. So, the next time someone feels the urge to say, "Just be positive," I challenge them to replace it with something far more powerful. "I believe you, I'm here for you, and you don't have to face this alone." Conquer with knowledge and action, empower viewers with tools. Therapy, lifestyle changes, support systems, and self-advocacy to fight back and thrive. Here's the most important part of this conversation. Knowing the truth is only the first step. Once we strip away the myths, understand the science, and acknowledge the silent battles, the next question becomes, what do we actually do about it? Because awareness without action doesn't change lives, the first piece of action is seeking real help. Therapy, counseling, and medical treatment aren't signs of weakness, they're tools of strength. Talking to a trained professional is like hiring a coach when you want to perform at your best. You wouldn't try to run a marathon without training. Why should we expect to take on the challenges of mental illness alone? The second step is lifestyle. No, lifestyle alone can't cure mental illness, but it can build resilience. Movement, sleep, and nutrition don't replace treatment, but they give your body and brain the support they need to respond better to it. A daily walk, a consistent sleep schedule, or simply eating foods that fuel you rather than deplete you. These small actions add up, and they matter. Support systems are another game changer. Surrounding yourself with people who listen, validate, and encourage makes a world of difference. Community takes the weight off your shoulders and reminds you that you're not carrying this battle alone. Sometimes that support comes from family or friends, sometimes from peer groups, sometimes from online communities, but the connection itself is what heals. And finally, knowledge is power. The more we learn about mental illness, the more we recognize it as a medical condition, not a personal failing. When you understand what's happening in your brain, you gain the power to make informed decisions, to advocate for yourself, and to push back against stigma. Knowledge doesn't erase the struggle, but it gives you a roadmap through it. The truth is, conquering mental illness doesn't mean never struggling again. It means refusing to let the struggle define you. It means using every tool available, from therapy to lifestyle to support to science, and turning the fight into forward motion. We've peeled back the myths, uncovered the science, and faced the hidden battles that so many fight in silence. The truth about mental illness is this: it's real, it's medical, and it deserves compassion, not judgment. Stigma has no place here, toxic positivity solves nothing, and silence only makes the pain louder. What changes lives is knowledge, action, and connection. If you or someone you love is struggling, know this: you are not broken, you are not alone, and you are not powerless. Speak up, reach out, and never forget, hope is real and healing is possible.